Look, there's no denying that academic research is a long and complex process. I mean, this is the fourth or fifth video you're watching, and I'm just now starting to talk about writing something that's actually going to be a part of your final paper. This lesson is going to talk about the literature review, and this is the first assignment you'll turn in for this class that will eventually be a part of your final research paper. The literature review is a really important section in every academic research paper, so I'm going to spend some time here explaining what this section is and what role it plays overall in the academic journal article. As they always say, knowing is half the battle. Understanding the role of the literature review should help make some sense of the things you do in writing this section, such as the structure and the kind of information that you include. But this lesson is also designed to explain how you actually write the literature review and how this process of writing the literature review fits into the other research you've been doing so far in the process. By the end of this video, you'll feel more comfortable knowing what you need to do to write a good literature review for your paper. As it's used in this context, the term literature review means something pretty specific, so let's start there. In an academic journal article, the term literature is used to specifically refer to the body of existing academic research on a topic. It's confusing, I'm sure, since you're used to thinking of literature in the context of Jane Austen and Shakespeare and Toni Morrison and what have you. But here, that word is referring to the academic literature on a topic, meaning the journal articles that are published describing the results of academic research. The word review here also functions a little differently than we're used to hearing it. It's not like a Yelp or a Google review. 0 stars, do not recommend. But instead, it's referring to a summary and synthesis of the existing knowledge on a particular topic. And again, that's the existing knowledge in the academic literature. I'll refer to the literature review frequently as both a summary and synthesis of existing research. So let's talk about that word synthesis. I use that word intentionally here because it conveys the idea of bringing a lot of things together in some sort of cohesive way. Specifically, what this means for the literature review is that the information you'll present in this section of the research paper is organized by topic. That is to say, you're taking all of the individual blocks of information that you've been collecting from your other sources and arranging them so that you talk about one topic first, you move on to another topic, etc. This is really important. Your literature review needs to be organized by topic and not by source. This is the key difference between this assignment and the annotated bibliography. The annotated bibliography is organized by source, but the literature review should be organized by topic. There are a few things you can do in writing the literature review to do this right the first time. For starters, you need to start with a good outline. We're going to work in class on building an outline for your literature review because it's such an important stage in the process. The outline for your literature review needs to organize what we know about your topic already in a way that someone who's not familiar with the topic, someone who hasn't done any of the research that you've done, can come in and read the literature review and know enough about the topic to understand your research question and what it is that you're trying to find out. In that way, you can think of the literature review as a teaching document. It's something that the reader of your academic journal article can learn from in order to understand the primary research that your article is going to be reporting on. A few notes about the literature review. This document should be primarily your writing. You may use some direct quotes from your sources, but they should definitely be the exception rather than the bulk of the document. You should try to mostly paraphrase in your own words rather than directly quoting, as long as there's a good way to do so. Regardless of whether you're quoting or just bringing in information from your sources by paraphrasing, you always want to cite your sources in this section of the paper. You should use whatever method of in-text citations correspond to the system that you've chosen, whether it's MLA, APA, etc. There are links on the Moodle pages to resources for both of those main citation styles that can help make sure you do this correctly. It's important to cite your sources when you're writing an academic journal article because this whole type of research is built upon the existing credible research in the field. You're citing your sources here not just to avoid plagiarizing, but because you want to show the reader that you've learned this information you're conveying in the literature review from credible academic sources. For that reason, it's also important that when you mention other studies or research, even when it's not by name, You need to include a citation to those studies as well, just so the reader knows they're real, that you're not just making it up. Let me show you a couple of examples of what I mean. Here you see a couple of sentences with references to previous research or studies. For both, you can see I've indicated what those articles are in citations. That way the reader can look at those sources to verify what I've said or to learn more about that particular research finding. So here on the right, you see examples of how in-text citations should be used when you paraphrase information you've learned from the sources. Now, as noted, these are all done in APA citation style. Whenever you make a claim or a statement like these ones you see on the right, you need to cite the source that backs up that claim or provides that information. And again, that's because academic research builds on the existing research on a topic. As I mentioned before, the literature review should be primarily your own writing. However, you may find sometimes where a source says something in a particular way that you want to use word for word. And that's when a direct quote is appropriate. Here you can see some examples of how direct quotes should be formatted. You'll notice that they're not written like dialogue. They don't have a comma before them, for instance. They're written just like they're part of the sentence, but the part of the sentence from the source is indicated with quotation marks. Remember that you always have to have a page number for a direct quote so the reader can verify that quote if needed. The literature review, it's a big task, and it's different than almost everything else you've written so far in college. So before I finish, I want to give you some advice and a bit of a pep talk. Believe me, as someone who's written a lot of literature reviews, some of them quite long, you will get through this. So, a few pieces of advice. The first is to give yourself some slack if you're nervous to start this assignment. It's totally natural. You're embarking on a big project and it's likely something you've never done before. Don't psych yourself out and get overwhelmed by the task. And certainly don't let that cause you to put this off to the last minute. It won't go well. Again, it might seem like more work to have a note-taking system like the one I've described previously. I get that. But I can promise you that it will pay off in the end when it comes time to write the literature review. You'll have a clear outline and you'll have a document that gives you easy access to your sources and the information from those sources that relates to each of your outline items. And finally, some good advice that might seem a little off topic. Try to leave yourself some time to edit your work. Maybe plan to be done a day or two before the deadline and come back to do your editing for grammar and punctuation the day before the assignment is due. Because this assignment will actually become part of your final paper, the grading standards here will be pretty high in terms of the technical aspect of your writing. And that'll be reflected in your grades for this and the other assignments that are part of the final paper. You are welcome to use resources such as Grammarly and other AI tools to help you edit your work. You are also welcome to go to the Writing Center and use their resources to help you edit these parts of your final paper.